This is Impact with Don Wenner. What's up, everybody? Producer Kyle here, and we have an awesome episode for you today. Don sat down with our guest, Jim Sheils, to discuss the efforts he is making to impact the affordable housing crisis in America. They also discussed creating a legacy for your family and balancing your work-life integration to make sure that you're present for your company, your investors, but also ever present for your children and your spouse. With his wife, Jamie, Jim is the host of the 18 Summers podcast, as well as the co-author of their best-selling book of the same name. Both links can be found in the show description. Jim is the founder of 18 Summers, which specializes in live events, workshops, and private consulting for organizations looking to strengthen their family lives while still succeeding in business. In keynote presentations, workshops, team events, or private consulting, Jim has helped hundreds of the top entrepreneurs and thought leaders around the world focus and implement where it really counts, at home. Three main takeaways from this episode are, number one, the three most important steps to connecting with your child in a meaningful way. Secondly, the concept of family board meetings and the impact they can have on your family. And finally, the third, what would your 75-year-old self say to you? Let's jump into Don's conversation with Jim Sheils.
All right, Jim, welcome to the show. So excited to have you here today.
Yeah, good to be here, Don. Thanks for having me.
So a lot of our listeners know you, Jim. You've come and spoken at a number of our events. You're kind of work the circuit per se. You're asked to speak at a lot of the YPOs and Freedom Founders, a lot of different organizations that a lot of our listeners are a part of. But for those who don't know you, Jim, tell us a little bit about your background, your family, what you do to kick off.
Yeah, I've been a real estate investor for 23 years, started in the foreclosure bulk business out in California, came here like 17 years ago, and doing the foreclosure thing through the meltdown. Started to see, about 7 years ago, those were going away. So I went pretty heavily into what's now known as build to rent. And when we started building these, we didn't even call it build to rent. So that's been a big part. And, you've been working with this as well, Don, as you know. And 10 years ago, I started a family education company because it was pretty much out of my own need. I have 4 kids, 2 adopted, 2 biological, and soon to be a 5th adopted, as you know. And I just saw something in common, Don, as you've seen with some of your bigger groups. There were guys with big balance sheets that were miserable at home. And there was some empathy for that, because it seems like there's so many things out there to help us ignite our business or grow our business. But there's really no simple playbooks for entrepreneurs to be better family men or better family women. And I wanted to create things that were simple, rhythmic, and easy to follow. And that's how 18 Summers was born.
Awesome. So we're going to get into a lot of things there. I'll first clarify, you said 17 years ago you moved here. You moved here to St. Augustine, Jacksonville area. So you're my neighbor.
We're neighbors.
Yes. So awesome. And then we can't skip over the fact that you are about to add a 5th child. So tell everybody a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, I went down to 2 things happened. I went down to Guatemala with a mutual friend of ours that's also an investor with DLP. I volunteered down there, and we got this final bug with our family saying, maybe we need to add 1 more. People were like, is this guy crazy? 1 more? And I remember 2 things happened. I remember when I got the word that you were doing it, and we were at a family mastermind in the Keys, and the director of it, he's spoken at a lot of YPOs. He was going around, he was saying, what would you like to be if you couldn't fail? What would you like to be if you couldn't fail? So the kids are saying, I want to be a pro soccer player. Adults are saying, I want to be Shania Twain and sing in front of an audience. And it got to my 6-year-old daughter, Don, and she said, I would just be a big sister. And it was like the final God wink that me and my wife were like, all right, let's look into it. And then, easier than most people, we did a national adoption search. And crazy enough, we got matched with a girl right up the road in Jacksonville that kind of looks like my wife, kind of like how I said, gosh, your little guy looks like you guys. It's so cool. And we're just excited. And I didn't even tell you this before we started. Jamie just texted me and said she's having contractions. So
Wow.
Yeah, in the next 48 hours, I could be sending you a new picture. So it's pretty exciting, but people go, gosh, you're so busy. And I'm like, yeah, I'm so busy, but how cool is it that I can add this to part of my busyness,
It's so awesome. Congratulations. And I always, every time people, say things like that to me about, what inspired you to adopt? And we just, as just 3 days ago, officially adopted Jacob, got the final court approval. But I always come back to our mutual friend, Josh with Viva May, who's been on my podcast. He's got 10 biological kids. Him and his wife have 10 children, all biological. I'm like, man, that guy can have 10, right? 5 to nothing, right?
We can
Yeah.
handle, a couple. So yeah, that's how I do too. I haven't stepped it up enough compared to him. So
Exactly. Well, congratulations. Hoping to see that picture in the next few days. So that's incredible. If she says that she's in all the hospital, you got to go here. That's all right. We'll pick up again this
we're gonna make
conversation.
it through. They just started. We got this interview we can handle.
All right, good. Well, you touched on, build to rent there as kind of a core fundamental part of your business side. And we're going to get into the 18 summers, the family education side. But on the business side, you've been doing build to rent, which is, as you said, that term didn't exist a few years ago. Now it's probably the hottest segment in all of real estate today, which is purposely building homes to be rentals, which was a foreign concept not that long ago. And I think it's one of the most critical components of solving for and impacting this crisis on affordable housing is we simply need more housing. So talk to me a little bit about how you see that, how you see this crisis, and obviously you see, being that a lot of your portfolio is here in Florida, how much rents have gone up this past year, how much more dramatically difficult it's becoming for people to afford housing in much of the United States today. How do you think about that, and how are you making an impact on it?
Yeah, some of like Southwest Florida, where we're working down, before the pandemic even started, we got a report from the municipality that they were 3 years behind on needed rental inventory at that time for people just to rent houses. And what we've learned too, going out to some of our markets like Ocala or down there, when there's a lack of housing, there's also the stuff that's available might not be that great of a quality. So when people are stepping in, what we're providing is, a lot of people, they don't want to own right now. As much as I can say, I like to own a home, I believe in it, they're like, no, I just want a good place to rent. There's good job source in these markets that are moving to. And as you know, Florida is experiencing something none of us could have seen coming in a good way. And so what we're trying to do is provide that A property in the B neighborhood where a lot of people are wanting to be without issue. So, and again, I think another important part of what we do is, we have crossover. Obviously, we work together, people work together. People want to own rental property, but they don't want to be slumlords. And we're able to kind of level the playing field with the new constructions, the areas we're building in. And we're not only providing great housing, but there's also smaller, hardworking investors that want to have small portfolios. And that's where we step in and kind of provide all pieces of the puzzle on that.
Awesome. Love it. So one of the other crises outside of the workforce housing crisis that we're focused on here on making an impact is the happiness crisis, as we like to call it. And you told a story at one of your presentations at an event we had of this 7th grade math class and this exercise that a teacher put their class through that I think is just phenomenal. And I'd love for you to share that. And then we've used that activity at DLP in a number of ways, which I'll share with you, but love to have you share that story with our audience.
This was a lesson that came from this story, and it's very powerful to say the unspoken because it's uncomfortable. It doesn't feel natural. Most guys who have their guard up want to just throw up before they, do something that nice. But this story always resonated with me. And it was a story about a 7th grade math teacher in the Midwest. And it was a Friday afternoon, and all the kids were learning some new algebraic thing. That's funny because on our podcast the other day, you were talking about getting your son over the hump of algebraic expressions or fractions. And, kids get frustrated. They're overwhelmed. This was the cool teacher. And she said, you know what? Everyone's, feeling a little short and down. Put away your papers and pull out a blank sheet of paper. So all the kids did that. She said, I want you to write the name of everyone in the class on the paper. So they did it. She said, now, here's what I want you to do. I want you to write something about that person you really admire about them, but you've never told them, and don't worry, no one's going to see this. No one's going to see your paper. So it's totally confidential. Go ahead and write down something you really admire about this person. So all the kids are like, all right, she's the cool teacher. They're covering their papers and they write it. She says, okay, great, hand them in. She said they felt a little lighter. They handed in the papers. She went home that weekend and made a master sheet for each person. Billy and Susie and Tom, they each got their list. And she brought it in Monday and she handed it out. And she said the silence was deafening with the occasional, wow, really? Huh, wow. Just the kids were in awe. Most people in their life will never see an authentic, straightforward list of all the things people appreciate and admire about you that are surrounding you. And she said she never thought much about it, this seventh grade teacher. But the story is 10 years later, one of the students was killed in Vietnam. So this is back in the 70s. He was killed in Vietnam. Being a small Midwest town, a lot of people attended the funeral and then were invited back to the parents' house of the deceased soldier for the after funeral reception. And what happened was the father of the deceased soldier came up to this seventh grade math teacher and said, hey, I want to show you something that I think you really need to see. And he hands her the list from 10 years earlier that they had done that day. And this is where it gets really cool. The story goes that a lot of the other students that were in that class still had the list. So some girl was like, I still have mine. I put it in my wedding album. Another person was like, I keep mine in my diary. Another person had theirs in their wallet. So this one thing, and I can't remember the philosopher of like the 1600s, but it was something, Herbert something said, kind words are worth much and cost little. And it was a reminder to me where I think I've joked on DLP stage, like I'll have full conversations I think I had with my wife. Never happened. They all happened up here, Don. I'm so fast moving, an ADD entrepreneur, and even with my kids. And I'm like, maybe I need to stop and say to someone who's been in the trenches with me the last 6 months with material price increases and this and that, I need to give some really sincere appreciation and kind words and admiration to them and to my family and to the others.
It's awesome. Yeah, the power of kind words, of showing gratitude. It's pretty amazing.
Tell me how you're using that DLP. I remember you said.
Yeah, so so I believe this happiness crisis, as we call it. They say today in America that we have the highest levels of unhappiness ever. Right, incredible high percentage of people are unhappy. Depression rates are through the roof, and I believe most people are out searching for, connection, purpose, meaning to life, and masturbated this where people are already looking to social media for connection, sort of looking in the wrong places where they end up then feeling more inadequate because they see this, vision of other people and feel inadequate to the lives they're living. And very few people often don't see what you said. They don't see what other people see and what makes them great, and don't feel appreciated, don't feel talented and special and so forth. So your story, when you gave that probably 2 years ago now, maybe 3 years ago, even when I first heard that story from you, that inspired us to do a similar exercise. We first did it with our executive team, and we've since done it in a lot of the teams throughout the organization. We've done it at every, I think, leadership or executive retreat since then. So we've done, I think, 3 years now. We've had a number of our small teams who meet together every week. People work together all day, every day, but to your point, never said these things about each other. We've created a simple way for them to be able to go and give anonymous feedback to the members of their teams. And then it pulls it together in a survey where then they get a report of all the things people say. And we ask specific questions like, what is something that you think, this person is great about this person, but they might not even realize about themselves, right? Things like that. And the feeling that people get from it. I mean, we do it at our leadership retreat, just did a couple months ago, like the energy at the event. We usually do it kind of midway through the event, kind of the energy and the connection and the relationships then that come immediately after. When people read that, you see people crying and tearing up, and these are, grown men and women. Yeah, it's just powerful. And I've heard, they talk about it and they want to go and do it with other aspects of their life. So it's unbelievably how powerful it is. And even some of the people now who've gone through this and done it 2, 3, 4 times, still you can tell are so excited and so anxious to get that report and see what others think about them. And it just really builds confidence. And it's been such a cool, as you said, it costs nothing, right? It's a little bit of time, but the value that can come from that. And I believe strongly, not only does it add confidence and can affect that person's life, and who knows what anybody's going through at that point in time, what they're dealing with. But also feel, when we're all dealing with times of the month or the week or the year where we've got tons of pressure and stress going on, it just brings the connection of our teammates together, their willingness to work through challenges together, just the depth of relationships grows so much just by sharing a little bit of what we appreciate about one another. It's just so powerful. So highly recommend doing something like that, and happy to share out with anybody who's curious exactly how we do it. It's very simple and powerful.
Love it. Love it. Yeah. And that carries over to the home life, which I know you care so much about. I've watched it. We did retreats for entrepreneurs and their children for about 5 years, and there were some pretty influential people that went through it. And to watch the two things of someone, giving that authentic compliment to their son or daughter in front of the room, it literally just floored the place. And you're talking about a very simple concept, but it just shows, gosh, when we're in a hurry, sometimes the most obvious, simple solutions we overlook. And that's why it's good to slow down, like, the team leadership stuff that you guys do. That's what one of the things I've always respected. You slow down to do that, and people go, oh, it's just foo-foo. It's, sure, yeah, I get it. You're trying to just show face. They're missing the whole potency of it.
And yeah, that lesson certainly, to your point, applies to our home lives and our families, right? I mean, I can tell my wife how wonderful she is and how great she is at home, and when it's just us and our even with our boys. But man, when I feed her appreciation in front of others, right, in front of the people in my organization or our friends, man, the difference, a meaning of that, of just showing that appreciation in front of people you love and care about, it's powerful. So it's a great reminder. So I'm gonna transition this here, Jim, to an area I'm just really excited. I want to make sure we don't miss out on time for you to talk about. So the third of the four crises that we focus on at DLP is we call the legacy crisis, which is the shirt sleeves to shirt sleeves in 3 generations. The fact that so many successful first generation wealth creators have that wealth fully lost, if not in the second generation, in the third generation. And also, to your point, so many, you said earlier, so many of these wealthy families, the individual, often the man who worked hard and created this wealth is miserable, right? And his kids don't appreciate him. They don't have any motivation or drive. Has marital issues. It's more common than uncommon, I see, in really, really successful people, successful in financial measurements. And I believe so much of it can simply, so often the shirt sleeves issue has nothing to do about making bad investment decisions or anything on the finance side. It has to do with investing in your family, investing in education. And you built some, as you said, some very simple rhythms that some of which you share in your book, 18 Summers, such as your family board meetings, which is very different than I think most people think that would be. So I'm just going to turn it to you. I'd love for you to kind of explain these concepts of family board meetings and overall how you and your family and help others avoid this common story of family challenges that come in the midst of building a great career, wealth, financial success.
Yeah, I think that, in conversations you and I have had is people try to psych themselves out of being an entrepreneur and a family man. And there's almost like this stigma, well, you don't have a degree in family counseling. You're not supposed to be home. I mean, all these old stigmas are really dying. And one of the things that I've seen is a trust fund is only a document, right? And if you're just depending on a document with guard dogs around it after you're gone, it's going to have to work twice as hard. But if you are actually present and instilling values, that can be just so incredibly powerful for continuing what you've worked on instead of getting it pulled down. And the solution doesn't have to be as complicated as we made the problem. One thing I can tell you with every confidence, Don, most entrepreneurs are very dedicated, but they either don't feel like they deserve to be at home or they just don't know how to do it. And most people are only a few rhythms away from getting their family like 80% of the way there. And that's a huge starting point. But we don't have any sort of rhythms at home. Like I think I've said to you before, I can say, Don, when do you meet with your CFO? And you say, our CFO and I meet every Thursday, 3 to 5. At least that's what mine used to be. And then I would ask these executives, I'd say, great, when you meet with your CFO, name the day and time you go on a date with your wife every week. And it's crickets. And I've done this at EO, YPO, different things. And it's because we don't set rhythms in our family life like we do in our business, right? We know we got to have that quarterly meeting. We don't do that with our family life. So what I tried to do is, how do we set powerful rhythms with the most important people in our family that will, get effect, stick, be easy to buy into, and see results. And so that's what 18 Summers is all about, helping busy entrepreneurs put rhythms into their family life that work and see results. I'm proud to say I know you and your wife now use our board meeting strategy. That was a simple book that I didn't even want to write, and people pushed me into writing it because they said they were getting so much out of it. But it's a simple concept of, my kids are my most important investors, clients, and key team members in my life. And they're the most important. So for $500 million a year to say, yeah, I'll get to them when I can, right? You're probably going to schedule some meetings with that person. You're going to spend some time with them. So I schedule time every quarter with each one of my children to have a day with them. What are board meetings? Well, for us entrepreneurial companies, a board meeting is normally, reuniting the team and looking forward to the next 90 days, right? That's what I think a real good board meeting was. And that's what I try to do with my children every 90 days, Don, same as you're doing now. I let them plan the day. I turn off my phone. We go all in and just have a good time and some deep conversation by the end, sometimes more than not, sometimes less. It depends on the day, but that one rhythm has been the pilings in growing the relationship. Now, too, so I have 4 children. My 2 oldest, I married my wife when she had gone through a really bad divorce, had full custody of my now adopted sons. I came in their life at 7 and 5. That was a really strange age, Don. That's a very strange age. So I was running this real estate investment company post 2008. And I started to spend one day a quarter with them. And of course, that brought the time in between closer. And the results we got, which I talk about in my book, were just incredible. And it's like, this is a simple concept of quality time and not trying to delegate out the responsibility of being a father to a nanny or a grandparent or an older sibling. So with that and like a few other rhythms, spending time with your children, dating your spouse once a week, but actually doing it. And we have a whole way we set up date. Actually, I think we're doing a leadership thing with your executive team soon, my wife and I, which I'm looking forward to. And but what I've learned, and the challenge for people out there, is you are only a few rhythms away. And again, you can look on some of the stuff that we've done with DLP, and DLP has great ones, or on 18 Summers. But if you will just put 2 to 3 rhythms into your family life and stick with them, within 6 months, you're going to have a different grounding, a different comfort, a different relaxation, a different trust. And you can build from there.
I love it. Yeah. And just hit on a couple of things there. So just to give a little more color on these family board meetings, we started doing them in my family after my wife read Jim's book, prior to me reading it. I think it's been 10 quarters now. So about 2.5 years ago, we've done these. So we haven't, and that's the great thing. You can build these rhythms however you want. The key is having the intentional focus around it. And so what we've done is, we don't do an entire day, but we do about 5 hours. And each of our sons, who are 8 and 9 now, they choose what we do. So we've planned it around new exploration. So we do about every 3 months, almost, it's not always exactly 3 months, but we do it 4 times a year, about every 3 months. And we've done it in a new place. So we've been in the Keys, we've been in Gatlinburg, we've been in Asheville, we've been in Cape Cod, we've been all these different places. We're about to do it in Puerto Rico is our next one in a few weeks, and kids look forward to it. They think about it and they pick whatever we do. No, as you said, no electronics, no phone, and the conversations that come about with one-on-one time. And it's just unbelievable. The value that comes out of it. Our kids are all so different when they're alone, when they're one-on-one. And that's just such a simple thing. So it's it's 10 hours for 2 kids. It's, for ours, it's 10 hours a quarter. Right now we have 3, it'll be, another 5 hours. But, and what I've seen, I know a lot of people who've now done this, thanks to Jim teaching on it. There's not an age that I think is too young. There's definitely not an age that's too old. It works with grandkids as well. For adult kids, just building that rhythm, spending some one-on-one time with the people you care most about. Just couldn't be a simpler rhythm. And I love that concept. Date night is another great one, right? A simple rhythm. Maybe you can't do it every week. You probably can, but maybe you can't. You don't think you can yet, then start doing it every month or every 2 weeks, right? And just have that focused time with your significant other. Or it could be 15 minutes of looking across from your spouse and having a real conversation at the end of each day, right? Could be 10 minutes of prayer and reading with your kids at the end of the day, right? Could be, just coming home and having dinner together. Just a few simple rhythms. It's unbelievable the difference that makes. And one of those rhythms that I just hit on is having dinner as a family, and that's one that I grew up having in my life, and so I've committed since my kids were born to be home for dinner at least 4 out of 5 work days, Monday through Friday, and done it 4 out of 5 days. I give myself one free night to be working later and doing things, but 4 out of 5 nights, I'd say 49 out of 52 weeks a year at least. I'm there, I have dinner, or I'm with my family, maybe going to sports or whatnot, but I'm home by dinner time and we're together as a family. And other than when we're doing sports, it's sitting at the dinner table. So you had said in that 60 years ago, the average family would spend 90 minutes having dinner together. And that today, the stats say the average family spends 12 minutes. Those who do have dinner together spend on average 12 minutes together. I'd love just to kind of unpack that a little bit, the power of having dinner as a family, and hear some of your expertise around this topic.
And isn't it funny, Don, people go, when I first say that quote, they're not as surprised about the 12 minutes. They're going, wait, seriously, they sat there for 90 minutes and had a meal? Like, it almost sounds foreign, which is kind of sad, because when we talk about the happiness crisis, you have to have enjoyment along the way, right? As we've talked about in our masterminds together, you got to do the 20-mile march. But at the end of the day, there's nothing wrong with having a celebration or a meal. And to rush through it, what a cheat. I mean, I was like, wow, 90 minutes. All right, that's something to strive for. I think nowadays, Don, what's happened is, in part of this crisis, we're rushing off to something that's not even as important what we really value. So we all know that rush off in 12 minutes is a text that can wait, an email that's not that important, at least not for the next hour, a Facebook thread that really has no bearing on anything and can wait forever and not even be dealt with, or some sort of other useless scrolling. That's where a lot of it's gone. What I've tried to encourage people to do is, as you know, I talk about intermittent tech fasting. In the health benefits, we've talked about intermittent fasting. You're not giving up eating. You're just saying, I'm only going to eat between this time and this time. I encourage a lot of people around that dinner time challenge. And this is something we did during the pandemic for a lot of families, saying, look, I know it's crazy. There's a lot of unknowns. Even if you will turn off your phone for 1 hour a day, 1 hour, so pick a time, 6 to 7. That's a time where your family's around, and have everyone's phone off. What we found for that, and we're up to 2 hours now. I usually try to do 5:30 to 7:30 every day. You're not getting me. Occasionally, like you said, one day I'll be working through, but for most of the days, I'm untouchable during those times. And what I learned is, if people would just start with 1 hour a day, Don, around that dinner time challenge, to make dinner a little longer, and everyone's phones off, yours, your spouse's, your teens, a couple things happen. At first, you might go, oh, this feels weird. We don't have this thing to block and put in front of us. Other times, though, once you start to get used to it, you'll start to have more conversation. We started going back to core values of joking around, getting outside, planning more adventures. Like you, Don, adventure's a big thing. Once we started to have this hour, we were like, why don't we plan to go here? And we started planning more adventures. So, and you feel so much better after that hour. Again, we're talking about a short amount of time. So I think people are rushing off, but if we can get back again to a simple rhythm of just dinner time, and you sit down and you're not rushing off in 12 minutes to something you really don't need to get to for at least an hour or two, or maybe not even until tomorrow, you can start to feel grounded. Because a lot of people, when I talk to them, and I know you and I have talked about this, they feel like a stranger at home. They feel like they're a part-time disciplinarian, or just like an ATM machine, which is a very, discounted thing to our efforts. And I've said, well, if you're not actually getting the real time together, you're always going to feel like this. And this one thing around dinner, let's challenge to go backwards. I'm a future forward thinking guy, but for dinner, I'm like, I want to be more like 60 years ago than I do today. So, and I think one of the fastest and easiest ways is commit to an hour, and turn off the phones and just see what happens.
It's so powerful. And I think that's sometimes where people can get confused as well, is that even those who say, hey, I'm going to intentionally, which is step one, right, is intention. I'm going to intentionally be home more. I'm going to intentionally spend more time with my kids. And they go out well-intentioned saying, I'm going to do these things, but then they may physically be there, physically be in the household, right? Physically be sitting next to their kids, physically be sitting at the dinner table, but their mind and their focus is on their phone or their computer, and they're not present, right? And I always think, like, I could spend 1 hour of focused time with my kids, all in on them, right? Doing whatever, playing sports or a board game, or just, horsing around, right? Just giving them my undivided attention. And that 1 hour is way more valuable than if I was home all day, but in front of my computer all day, right? It's just so much more important. And I just encourage, I don't know if I've ever spoken about here on the podcast, but I have no social media on my phone at all. I don't watch the news, read the news, have any notifications on news that comes to me at all. Haven't in at least a decade. And the freedom that comes from that is so powerful. I don't want to distract myself with anything I can't act upon. And so I don't pay any attention. People always say, well, how do you know what's going on? Like, there's never possible that something actually important is going on that you're not going to know about it. But I do that all the time, but certainly being able to step away from it for an hour or two, as you said, is so powerful. And everybody today, I don't know a single person in my organization, anybody I talk to, who doesn't feel their biggest challenge is time management, or I like to call it priority management. Yet there's all these studies that show that the average American today spends somewhere around 5 hours a day in front of television or on social media. 5 hours a day, yet everybody feels they have so much going on. They're rushing so much. They don't have any time for the things that are important to them, yet can find time to spend 5 hours a day in front of a television or social media. It's pretty amazing.
It is. And then when we wonder why we feel like strangers and we don't have enough time. And what you hit on, Don, we call it half-in parenting. If you're still taking a text, you're still reading a thread, you're looking up a news update, and you're trying to talk to your kid, and you really think that they didn't notice that you're only half there, you're fooling yourself. And I've been the king of fooling myself. I was a work in progress. I probably went into this because I needed it the most. But like you said, I think this intentional saying, you know what, I don't need to be on those things all the time. I can have this. Just setting that intention is definitely the first step. If you never set the intention, I don't think you ever believe it could actually happen. But it's exciting to watch, guys like you taking larger companies and saying, I'm not going to do it the old way. My kids are going to know who I am. I'm like that core value we share. I'm going to be famous at home. Yeah, I'm going to be a leader in my industry, but I'm going to be famous at home. I'm not going to be a stranger. And it's exciting. It's exciting to see. And that all starts with intention.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to ask one final question. I'm going to steal what I believe is your final podcast question. So I got to be on your podcast a couple of days ago, and you asked me this question. So I'm curious to hear your response back, which you asked me, what would my 75-year-old self, what advice would my 75-year-old self give to me today? So I'm going to flip that question to you to conclude us here, Jim. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much. And next time I'm going to bring your better half, Jamie, on here as well. I'd love to have you conclude us here with some wisdom.
Yeah, she said to say hello and is somewhere at the hospital, I believe now, and she's easier on the eyes for all your peoples too. 75-year-old self, Don. I was saying this going into the pandemic. We had our 4 kids. We were fostering 2 kids, unknowns. There's a little bit of craziness and fun chaos. You might feel a little short and agitated or that. And my 75-year-old self was going, oh man, this is the good stuff right now. Eat this up. It won't always be there. Even the work stuff, when there's a work setback and you can keep a sense of humor through a tough time, you're like, that's the good stuff. You're going to look back on that and just be so appreciative of the way you handled it, the way you went all in. Don't discount these things of, oh, I'm feeling agitated about this, or I'm feeling agitated at home, and because it's not going to last forever. So really when frustrations or let's say you come home from a busy day at work and the kids are running around and just being kids. Don't get agitated. Like, this is the good stuff. You're going to miss that. So my 75-year-old self says, just eat it up, because it really is the good stuff right now. Even the setbacks, the more I've seen where, something's happened, if you can keep a sense of humor, you're like, all right, that wasn't that bad. And how I handled it, you know what I mean? It made me appreciate it more. So that's me. Just don't discount the good stuff, because even the headaches will be the good stuff by the time you reach here 40 years from now.
Well, I hope that 75-year-old self is in your ear when you're getting up every 2 hours here in a few days, all night long.
Believe me, I'm going to have to keep playing that, but I'm going, man, this is the good stuff.
It is the good stuff. It is. Well, congratulations. And can't wait to hear more and see some pictures here in the days ahead.
We'll get them out to you, Don. Thanks for everything. We'll see you soon.
Thanks, Jim. This has been Don Wenner on the Impact Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode. You can check out our other episodes by subscribing wherever you get your podcasts, or on YouTube, or check us out online by going to impactwithdon.com. I encourage and challenge you to make an impact.